Back on the Good Morning Artesia radio show. I think we're all getting coffee together. So joining us now is Mr. Larry Marker. And Larry, good morning. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
How you doing this morning, sir? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, you sound great. And you look great. Got your nice shirt on. So
Yes.
those... we have a TV audience as well as our radio audience. We have a lot of folks that watch us on KSVPTV.com, KSVPRadio.com, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. So we appreciate you taking time to join us here today. And Larry's name, for those of you that have already gotten your sample ballot so you can figure out who you're going to vote for, you're not going to see Larry's name on the ballot, but you are going to see a spot where it says Commissioner of Public Lands, certified, or not certified, declared write-in candidate. And that's what we want to talk about today. Larry's running for Commissioner of Public Lands. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Larry, and what's your background that will help you be a land commissioner for the state of New Mexico.
Okay, I'll just get started real early, and I'll run through this pretty quick because there's a lot to it, but I'll just hit some of the high spots. I was born in Hobbs in '63. Grew up southeastern New Mexico. I'm a southeastern New Mexico guy, born and raised New Mexican, and I hope to always be in New Mexico. This last few years have been a bit of a challenge. I've been in various different businesses. I was a garage door business for several years. Been in the oil and gas business the last 12 years as an independent oil and gas operator. Kind of ironically, I was kind of tired of dealing with the general public, and I just wanted to get out and work on my own and just, get out and just go to work. So I ended up buying a bunch more little stripper wells, what we call stripper wells. So last 12 years, I've been an independent oil and gas producer. Well, then the regulatory climate in New Mexico became such that I figured we needed to do something. So I started going to legislative sessions and various different rulemaking hearings and lawmaking stuff, various different things. Well, as I progressed, I determined the best thing for me to do for the state of New Mexico and for the industry and for my family was to run for the commissioner of public lands.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, as you can tell, I'm talking kind of fast because I know we're limited in time.
Yeah, well, we've got
about 6 or 8 months.
We've got about 10, 12 minutes, so we're in good shape.
Okay. So what qualifies me to be the Commissioner of Public Lands, obviously I've been, in the oil and gas industry. I'm familiar with state leases, some of the things that's gone on the last few years in the state government. We've grown our regulatory agencies. We've done a good job growing those. Unfortunately, that's making the industry shrink. And it's not just about that. It's the grazing rights, the farmers, the ranchers mainly. Out north of Roswell here, where I actually live, there are actually some farms that are on state trust land. The state land commissioner is in charge of managing our 9 million surface acres and our 13.5 million subsurface acres. The state land commissioner actually has a lot of discretionary authority that nobody really knows about. It's never really been that big of a problem in New Mexico until the last few years when the environmental activism has moved in, and it's really causing some issues with the oil and gas industry, mainly the smaller independent producers or the medium-sized producers. So it's really caused some problems. As your land commissioner, obviously, I'll be an advocate for the oil and gas industry and a supporter of that, but I'll also be an advocate for the mining industry, the ranching, and what farms we do have on state trust land. The original intention of the state land office was to generate revenue for the citizens of the state of New Mexico. The state land office is supposed to be a revenue-generating entity. It's actually not an agency. The state land office, the state land commissioner does not serve at the pleasure of the governor, and he doesn't get his budget from the state legislature. He doesn't have to have his budget approved by the legislature. So the reality of it is the state land commissioner answers only to Jesus Christ and the citizens of the state of New Mexico, and I like to say everybody else can just go pound sand. My focus as state land commissioner is going to be returning the state land office to its original intention, to generating revenue while preserving the asset. The asset being the state trust land. It's a simple job. It's a simple job description. How it has become so infected is beyond me. But that is my position. I'm going to return the state land office to what it's supposed to be, a supporter and advocate for the people that generate revenue on state trust land, and obviously preserve the value of the asset for future generations. That's kind of a simplified version of why I'm qualified and what I intend to do. But that's what you have right there. As far as being the write-in candidate and an independent, that gets a little complicated, but I could hit that too.
Well, you mentioned something, stripper wells. I think that's one of the areas that maybe is misunderstood or people don't quite understand, but that seems one of the areas that the environmentalists, whether it's at the federal government or the state government, want to shut down and keep from happening and keep from continuing. And then the grazing rights and where you can graze cattle and how many cattle you can graze. All these things have really been restricted tremendously over the last couple of governor cycles. Are you prepared when the governor calls, or whoever's in state government, the environmental EPA or whatever, and they come calling on the land commissioner and say, hey, you guys really need to go green over here? What are you going to say when that call comes in? Because I'm sure there's a lot of influence that's being impressed upon the Public Land Commission right now.
Well, part of the reason I decided to run as an independent is the state land office is supposed to be a separate entity from the state government. The state land office is not part of the executive branch, the legislative branch, or the judicial branch. It's a separate entity, and like I said, it's supposed to generate revenue and preserve the value. As far as outside influences, that is my main focus, is to get rid of those influences and get back to the Constitution and the Enabling Act, which when we became a state, one of the deals we made is what the state land office would do. The state land office is actually older than the state government in this. That's kind of an odd deal. But constitutionally, I am limited to a very, very specific set of duties. Those duties do not include running people out of business. The mining industry in New Mexico has been destroyed systematically over the last probably decade. New Mexico has the second largest reserves of uranium in the entire country, and possibly the largest. We don't have a single uranium mine. Does that make any sense?
Mm-mm.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
As far as, there's some big discoveries of helium in northwestern New Mexico. Well, the state of New Mexico is talking about having a moratorium on natural gas wells. Well, natural gas wells is typically where we get our helium from.
And there's a worldwide shortage of helium, if I'm understanding things correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Natural gas is $5 or $6 an MCF, and helium's 180. So yeah, helium potentially that could be a big boom for northwestern New Mexico, and particularly on the Navajo reservation up there.
Mm-hmm.
And since they've just lost their coal-fired power plant, that didn't help matters either. The coal mining, the copper mining would be a big asset in New Mexico, not near as big as oil and gas, but it could be a huge contributor. We've got 5 different rare earth minerals that we're not mining at all in New Mexico. Those are critical for your renewable resources, things like that. As far as your wind farms and your solar farms and stuff like that, obviously I support those industries, but we don't need to outlaw everything else and make those, the king of the hill, because the technology simply is not there. Now, if that technology continues to improve and the technology for batteries gets better, if it's ever better than oil and gas, then by all means, let's use it. No different than, cars are better than wagons.
Right.
But that's how capitalism works. If it's actually better, it'll be cheaper and more people will use it. We have the greatest government system of government in the history of man. We also have the greatest economic system, which is capitalism. I'm a firm believer in capitalism. You could probably tell that pretty quick.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So you mentioned that the land office has not necessarily been a revenue generator for the state. Have you looked at the actual numbers as far as what it contributes to the state budget? Has it, in real numbers, has it been on a decline the last few years?
Well, what we have right now, and Garcia Richards, and I typically don't mention the other candidates, but in this case, the existing state land office, they do brag that they've had record-setting revenue for the last 3 years. Well, that is true, but what they're using that for is to cover up the fact that they're running the small independent guys out of business. You and I both know when this big shale boom in southern New Mexico, when it starts tapering off, those wells typically get sold to the smaller companies that run more efficiently or are willing to do a little bit more to get a little bit more oil out of the ground, which hence the name stripper well. Well, they're running the small guys out of business so fast, there's not going to be anybody to take those wells and continue to generate revenue for the state of New Mexico. And then we're going to realize, basically in our world, we would say that the chickens are going to come home to roost. And that's what's happening. We're covering up a lot of what's going on with just the massive amount of revenue that's being generated. Ironically, that revenue is being generated by an industry that lady hates.
Yeah.
She told me, I was in a debate with her last week, and we get along just fine, sort of. We're pleasant and respectful to each other, but she told me, she said, you could not be more opposite than me and you, and she's right. You couldn't get more opposite of her than me.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I'm proud of that.
Well, good. Good for you. So so how do you reverse this? You get elected. How many public lands commissioners are there? And what's the process then to make some of the changes that you would like to make at that office?
There's one land commissioner. The state of New Mexico has one land commissioner.
Just one.
I said, he's got a lot of discretionary authority. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quit canceling leases, and I'm going to quit looking for reasons to cancel leases. I've got friends in that Artesia area. They've had wells that their dad gave them. They get a letter in the mail that said, hey, this lease has been canceled. If you go on your well, it's trespassing. Call us when you're ready to plug the well. We'll give you permission to get on your well and plug it. And that's not a one or a two time. That has happened numerous times. You've got one lease over there that was canceled inexplicably, had over 80 wells. It affected 80 different wells that we're producing right now. So these leases are getting canceled for various different reasons. I'm not saying we don't go by laws and regulations. What I am saying is we quit destroying people's businesses. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Well, that's the second thing I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fire a bunch of lawyers, and I don't mind saying that publicly.
Yeah.
The lawyers that have been running around canceling these leases, running these guys out of businesses, they need to be held accountable.
And
the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop the bleeding. And I hate to be controversial, but we can't compromise anymore. We're out of options. There's several guys living right there in Artesia that have been put out of business simply because of activities from the state land. We're going to stop that. The changes that I will make, like I said, I'm going to get back to generating revenue, be a supporter and advocate of the companies or the people that generate revenue, and just get back to what the state land office is supposed to be. Get the partisan politics out of there. Just go to work.
All right.
Put my boots on and go to work.
We've got about a minute and a half. Larry, your name is not on the ballot. You're an independent write-in.
Yes, sir.
People decide they like what they're hearing. They want to vote for you. How does that process work?
Okay, you go like you're going to vote regular. You get your ballot. You go down there and you find the section that says Commissioner of Public Lands. There's 3 names on there. There's the Republican, the Democrat, and then there's a spot for the declared write-in candidate. You color in the oval and you just write my name right there. Write Larry Marker. If you can't remember Larry, just write Marker. Write it right there on that line. You can write it on top of the words that are there, but color in the oval. Write in Larry Marker. Write in Larry Marker in the spot that says declared write-in candidate. I know this is a long shot, but it actually has proven to be a really good thing. I've got a lot of momentum in that Albuquerque area, Rio Rancho, Valencia County. I'm doing really well. we're going to surprise people, and we actually have a good shot at winning this. I've spent a lot of time in northern New Mexico, mainly that Albuquerque area, and obviously I have some, some solid support here. I did grow up here, and I've got some really good people working on my campaign